Start. Go with that. Turn that on, just so they've got a better picture. That says start streaming. That says it's happening, and that says live. Let's have a refresh. Should be happening, but it's not. Go for a refresh. Well, anyway, that says I'm live. Technology is not really complicated. It's all doing its thing. I can do the chat. Hello. Take the headphones off. I should be able to hear myself, but I can't. Why can't I hear myself? Is there a problem? I could hear that. That was headphones, wasn't it? Yeah. But I should be able to hear myself on there if and when it starts. There we go. Right, so is this today? No, this is whenever. This going live quickly bit doesn't work very well, does it? It's another car crash. It says I'm live. Ah, there we go. And it says I'm live. Which presumably I am. Hello. I've got the headphones on. When did it start, I wonder? Oh yeah. Normal car crash. Never mind. Better to have a car crash and get there than not have a car crash and not, if that makes any sense. Good evening, hi, hello, how you doing? Today is, it's getting late in the year. Actually, let me just check the calendar. It is the 29th, according to my eyes, 29th of November 2023, which means that we're nearly into 2024. So, it's getting exciting. We're well into this century, if you can call that exciting. So, yes, I saw one of these memes the other day, and it said, do you realise that 1974 was the same distance as 1917 was to 1970. Yeah, anyway, it's a long time ago. So, yes, because we know the Beatles have just had their 60th anniversary. We also know that Doctor Who has had its 60th anniversary. Now, who's a Who fan? I'm a Who fan, but for some reason, now I always liked the first season. Wasn't that keen. Well, I mean, I was 63 it started, so I was 6, and I did the hiding behind the sofa, and it was all good fun. And the Daleks, the Pepper Potts, and we all talked about it at school. But I did find that they were a bit slow, even in those days. I found them slow. I'm not saying that they weren't well made, but it used to annoy me, particularly when John Pertwee got involved. I liked Patrick Troughton. But, if you've got a favourite Doctor Who or a story, put it in the comments, and let's have a conversation about it. If you're on here, then you can come up here and have a conversation about it. Anyway, right. Yeah, so Doctor Who. But we went back to the original Christopher Eccleston ones with Rose Tyler. She was so young, and well, so was he. Didn't realise quite how long ago it was that they were actually happening. It's strange though, if you watch the because they're all on iPlayer in the UK, and I'm pretty sure you can probably access them from other parts of the world. But anyway, they basically do one series and a Christmas special on all of these things, so you get about between 6 and 10 episodes and a Christmas special. So a lot of people died at Christmas, but it's great to see the early ones with, there was the one with Kylie Minogue, and the Right Said Fred Mann, who played the grandpa, and Donna Noble for the Dr. Donna. But it's when you actually watch them one after the other, they become quite interesting. Kelvin, hi, how you doing? It's a bit chilly out there, isn't it? Just having a chat about Doctor Who. Are you into Doctor Who, or are you just sort of let it pass you by? I was just saying I've watched all of the. Well, we've got to halfway through the mat. They've just dropped Rory and Amy off. I won't tell you. I won't spoil it for you, but they've just dropped them off the bit I've got, which is quite a long way through. But saw the one on Sunday. Saturday. That was good. The new one, Kelvin. It's Baltic. Stopped watching it after Eccleston left. Baker is my doctor. Ah, right, yes. I actually quite liked. I mean, of the old ones, my favourite was Patrick Troughton. But yeah, Baker was good. Didn't particularly like the ones with Pertwee, because he was stuck on Earth and it was boring. I mean, there's only so many times you can chase an upturned pepper pot around a field in the UK or Wales, or combination of where they were, and so I did not like Sylvester McCoy. Not that he wasn't any good, I just didn't like him as the Doctor. I didn't like the Doctor at that point. It all went a bit weird. But then they put it on in the middle of the week, and I was fairly young. I was still going out on my motorbike and things in those days. Anyway, so Kelvin, how are you keeping? All right? And anybody else who's around? I was in two minds as whether to do a live today, for the simple reason I've got a headache. So pardon me if I sort of, the pain isn't particularly great. It just means that sometimes I have to think twice before I can find the words, which is all right. It's just what happens when you get to my age, I guess. Anyway, that's another story. Right, so what I was going to do was the technology is not really complicated. There's just a lot of it. Start at the beginning, ... Actually, that ... was an accident. That was a double bounce, but it's good, isn't it? Because I actually produced this, the title, and this stream, and I managed to produce the thumbnail, all within 5 minutes. Right, Kelvin says, back to work tomorrow after a couple of weeks off. Oh, right. Not relishing the winter drive-in. No, do you have to go far? I'm sort of like 10 minutes down the road when I go in the mornings, but used to do half an hour. That was never fun. It was, this morning was even at, because I leave for work at about 9:15ish, and it was even then it was the car was still frosty, which is always interesting, trying to get the flipping stuff off in a hurry. But yeah, techniques used: scraper and a bottle of Tesco ice scraping de-icer stuff. Tomorrow I'm going out with some warm water out of the tap, not hot water, just water out of the hot tap. Dump that on it and then scrape it. That's what I've done for the last. I've lived here for 40 years, and I've done that for 40 years. And no point breaking a habit of a lifetime. It's worked for 40 years. It can work for another couple of years. Takes about an hour along rural. Oh yeah, the rural roads. I do not envy you that. We're having, if anybody's not around from the UK, we're having a decided amount of potholes this year. The government had decided that the way to get to zero emissions is to wreck all the cars on the roads by letting us have huge potholes. There's 50,000 more than previously, apparently, wrecks or something, according to the AA yesterday. Yeah, 50,000 this month more than a year ago, which is ridiculous. And they weren't particularly good then. It does seem to be the case of everything's broken at the moment, and I don't like being political, but I'm not happy with the fact that nothing works. You go to Tesco's and you can't get what you want. You can't get what was there last week, and there's no guarantee you're going to get it next week. And the roads are falling apart, and basically things. And then of course we've got all the floods and stuff. It's an interesting time of the century. I think in the future, when they're looking back, they're going to sort of say there's some weird things happened, particularly in the UK, but globally as well, with the floods and the bad weather incidents and things. See, America's they've had 50 centimetres of snow overnight around Buffalo again, which is the lake snow. Apparently, it's caused by the hot air and the cold air over the lakes, and then boom. So it could be interesting. I had some really pretty pictures last year of the snow and stuff around Buffalo, which was, there was a lot of it. So anyway, let's hope everybody keeps safe. Unfortunately, not everybody can and does. Anyway, right. I put up an interesting video, I thought. Well, all my videos are interesting. Even the boring ones are interesting because they take... You know what? It takes as long to make a bad and boring video as it does to make a good and interesting one. That's not to say that it's a bit the honey pot. You don't... No, melting pot. That's it. You don't know what you're going to get until it happens. And then when it's happened, you don't know... Even though... I've gone back on some of my videos and thought, why the hell did I do that? And then I've watched it again and thought, that's why. And... It's interesting that I've got to stop using that word. It's not interesting. It's weird. That do the way things that you look at something, you think, well, was that relevant at the time? And yeah, some of any video. I've got 430 videos plus on my channel at the moment. I did one with AI, and I did one without AI. Well, I bought Canva again. Now Canva is I'm not getting paid for anything on this, but Canva is quite an interesting graphics program. They do a free version, and it's worth playing with. It's not the same as Photoshop, but it does some of what Photoshop does, and it's not the same as an arts program, but it does some of what that does, and Canva does what Canva does, but it does produce now pictures, and well, I'll show you because you won't have seen the thumbnail because I started it up. But what you do now with Canva is you just say to it, give me a picture about so and so, like I did the other week on Chat. The Bing version of Chat, I did it on Canva. I said I wanted a picture of somebody surrounded by vintage tech, a young man surrounded by vintage tech, and that's what the thumbnail came up with. And I was quite pleased with that because I will show it if I can find it. But this is why I mentioned this, because I did do there we go, start beginning tech. If I just bring this up, you can just see what I'm referring to. Fade. Boom. There we go. So that's a picture of my imagination. See, that's what I would have liked to have looked like when I was that age, but what the hell. Anyway, as it happens, I was much more handsome than that. But there we go. Right, cut that off there. Go back into there. Back into me. Right, take that off there. That's the thumbnail. And that, literally, I just said to it, I want a young man surrounded by vintage tech, looking confident, and hit the go button, and that's what it produced. Well, it produced 3 others as well, which weren't quite as good. But yeah, I think that's quite impressive. That's what I thought, Kelvin. It's quite convincing. If you didn't know it wasn't a photograph, you would have thought it was a photograph. And yeah, that's part of the Canva thing. So that was that. But the video I put up was a talking head, because there was a trial on a talking head thing. And that, well, you know, very handsome, green-eyed person type avatar talking. But it ran out before the end of the script, so I had to get a different one on to do the tagline. And interestingly enough, if you've looked at my channel listings, you'll see that the let me just bring that up. Channel dashboard, no, channel content. There we go. That should bring up there. The shorts. It was a short I put up, and so just so you can see. Just so you can see what I'm referring to. There is, well, that's my latest one. I'll talk about that in a minute. How tape heads work, human, that's me. And below that, how tape heads works. So this is the avatar one. And you won't actually hear anything, but because I've got the sound off, I think. But, well, yeah, it's got the sound as well.
The magnetic tape head is like your microphone, picking up the sound waves. But instead of sound waves...
And if I stop that and go back to... trying to do this live is much more interesting than trying to do it. So then we've got this one. And if I make that one play, put the sound on. Let's dive into the world of magnetic tape. It's exactly the same. Imagine you're at a concert and you want to record the music. Same script. The magnetic tape head is like your microphone. Same B-roll at the top. Sound waves, but instead of the sound waves, it's picking up changes. It's just me looking cool. I've got to say these sort of things, because if I don't, nobody else will. And being confident is all part of it. So let's get rid of that. And get rid of that. No, I've lost me now. I've lost me on my own thing. I should be on there. Let's go to there. And go to there. And, yeah, there's my avatar. Not my avatar, there's my thumbnail. Into the adverts. I've got to watch my own adverts. It's ridiculous. Hang on. Let's get rid of that. And I should be on the live bit, which is there. I don't know what that's doing. It's feedbacking. Right, okay. Let's get back to me. Wasn't that pretty, the feedback? I'll have to use that in something. I'm not sure what, but it's quite difficult to produce feedback like that with control. Yeah, the point I was going to make was that the actuality of it was that the one with, I'll just pull it up again because obviously I lost it. Channel content. The human one produced 453 views to date, and the avatar one produced 261. I got 4 comments on that, of which one was a comment and 2 was responses. I've only got 3 likes and it's 20, so I've got a lot of dislikes on there now. 11 dislikes on that one. Now on the human one, I've got 22 likes and 3 dislikes. So yeah, AI is not the way to go. I think that's possibly true to say. However, you don't know, well, you've got to try these things and you've got to see if they work, see if they're a tool as opposed to just being a tool. So that was quite good. But lesson learned, I won't do that again for a while. But what I might do is use it for, well, not that, but I might use it to have a two-person video where I can actually have a conversation with myself and not look like I'm totally daft. But then, you know, I am totally daft, so it's not going to help, is it? What I was going to say, did you see the thing about the long wave transmitter? It's absolutely true, that one. if you, I mean, most people don't know how the technology works, so they, it's one of these. Oh, is it really? And so, sorry, I'm just trying to rescue my mouse. It was about to fall on the floor. If you take the signal at 150 kilohertz from the bias, and you amplitude modulate it with audio, then you've got exactly the same signal that you'd normally feed to a radio transmitter, and just put on an aerial, and hey presto, you've got yourself a nice long wave transmitter. Very, very close to the bottom of the band. In fact, technically it's not quite there, but as I said on the video, if you give it a tweak, no reason why you can't. One of the things, I've seen a lot of stuff talking about technology. This is why this is a technology talk. I've seen a lot of people on Facebook saying about TV detectors, TV detector vans, whether they were real or not. And I'm not going to go into that as such, but I do know that there were some. Whether they used them is a different question. Whether they were right to use them is a totally different question. But if they could use them, isn't really open to debate, because at the time that most of them were around, there was no problem in detecting a TV. Televisions use superheterodyne receivers, and anybody who knows what a superheterodyne receiver is knows that there is a local oscillator which is just offset from the frequency of the reception, and depending on which signal you're receiving, it may be different. I saw the bias text, and it would work, although it's not something I've ever considered. Exactly. That's the thing. It's something that that's why the fact that it would work is the reason why you have beat cancel switches on good quality cassette decks for when you're using radio reception, because obviously you get heterodyning and things, and you get that whistle, and it's there. And the good thing about AM modulation, I'm sure you're aware of that, is but you can go up to 100% without distortion, and so any amplitude modulation will actually come out, be it very small or very large, as long as you don't hit it, and it actually would be full quality. With the EQ set for what they put on the tape, but it would be a reasonable quality signal coming out of there. And if it wasn't, you could certainly adjust it to be. When would you ever use it? Well, let me think. If you were ever trapped in a room and you had no mobile phone, theoretically, except that there's nobody on long wave anymore, but theoretically you could use a cassette deck to make an emergency transmitter. And if you wired it up right, you could use it as a receiver as well. But it would be harder, because the input is actually the input from the head is actually suppressing the bias frequency. Not that there's a lot left by the time it's come off the head anyway, because we're talking about audio and RF effectively. But theoretically, it's when you're talking about things like video recorders, of course, you are talking about RF signals. So as I say, in theory it could be done. In practice, it wouldn't be that easy, but in theory it could be done, and it's something that one of those wonders. That's why, hence, technology is not really complicated. If you ever, we've gone into an Anglian advert. Well, I have anyway. I'm going to hit skip now. If you looked at my original channel thing, I did a thing about if you understand a magnet and a coil, then you can work out how an electric car works, or anything else. MacGyver would make it work with a few other bits and bobs. Exactly. Or any of those, Doctor Who would be able to do it with his sonic screwdriver. I've got a thing in there that there was a Doctor, I think it was a Patrick Troughton one, where the Daleks were running around London, and they were in the underground, and they made a transmitter out of something. something, if anybody ever wants to try this is good fun. If you get do you know the old telephone mouthpieces on the old telephones, the round ones, not the modern trim type phones, but the old ding-a-ling type phones, the Series 700 telephones. If you get one of those and you take the mouthpiece out, it's a carbon microphone. Now, you may say, well, okay, it's a carbon microphone, what are you going to do with that? Well, what we did as kids, and this is, I say kids, students, electronic engineering students, if you want to make it sound posh, but what we did with that, and this worked really, really well, was we put it across the battery of a super heterodyne radio. Now, I'll let you just think about that for a minute. We were putting a variable resistor across the battery on a super heterodyne radio, and the effect that had was, and this worked, it worked amazingly well, because the radios are not that stable. They're voltage dependent. Well, they were in those days. It's a standard super het, not crystal locked, and so as you spoke into the microphone, its resistance varied, which meant that it altered the voltage of the battery a bit, which meant that the frequency of and the amplitude of the local oscillator varied. And we made walkie-talkies out of AM radios, normal listen to radio 1 type, or whatever the standard AM band, as the Americans would call it, radios. So we got something like 100 yards range out of them, or something like that. And you could actually, the trouble was you transmitted on the IF frequency, so you had to tune the receiving radio to something, but to the IF frequency, which was sort of 470k down, not a lot, or 455, whatever the appropriate was on the radio. But it did mean that it was actually very good, and as because we didn't really know we did know what we were doing. We were doing it, but we were just playing. It was before the days of CB. You weren't allowed to do that sort of thing, and in the UK, it was quite a serious offence, particularly transmitting on the frequency that was the normal AM band. But it only became a problem because it was actually a modulated signal. The radios were emitting this signal all the time, and that's why when you tune a radio, when you're next to somebody else's radio, you get whistles and peeps and things. I'm being a bit generalistic here, but if you've ever done it, you'll know what I mean. If you've got two radios and they're side by side, if you tune one, you can block the other one out, and that's exactly what we were doing. And by modulating on it, it was good. But what we also found was this worked on FM. If you got an FM radio, you could do exactly the same thing. And we stopped when the police were complaining about being jammed. Bearing in mind, this radio had not been modified in any way except for putting the mouthpiece from a telephone across the battery. And so, we decided at that point that it was possibly too risky, and we didn't do it anymore. But, we had about 100 yards range. We didn't even know the police car was there until we heard him key up. Anyway, so that was fun. Now, there was a comment on one of my videos, and I'll just throw this forward. Kelvin, you'd have an opinion on this. What's the best frequency to use to set the speed on a tape deck? If you've got a tape with a calibrated tone on a tape, what would be the best frequency? What would you go for? Would you go for, or would you not worry about it? Would you just be glad that you had a calibrated frequency which you could then use? I'll give you some time to think about that. I shall twiddle my thumbs. No, won't do that. So it's one of those things. I've had a comment come in, as I say. My pro tapes are 3000 hertz. Right. Now, so you use 3000 hertz because that's the pro tapes. I've got one. I've got one that does that as well. What would you say would be the disadvantage of using 1000 hertz? Or is there a disadvantage of using 1000 hertz? Because quite often you find that you can get a 1K tone from somewhere. Or how about 440 hertz? Or 400 hertz? Because that's what the comment was. I'll see if I can find it. I'm not sure where it went. Bear with. I shall see it whilst I'm waiting for Kelvin to think about it. I'm not going to have a go at anybody for coming up with a good reason or whatever. I'm just interested in the thought processes that were going on here. See if I can find it. Still having problems. Comments. There we go. Right. Okay. It came up in. Oh, I do hate the way they do that. It came up on my phone as being a thing, but it has a habit of sticking these things when you're trying. Oh, let's have a look if I can go for filter response. No, hang on. Half the review. Oh, I hate it. Never mind. I won't bother trying to find it. I'll just tell you what it said. Let's get rid of that. Kelvin. Right. So yeah, the guy was one chap asked, was there any advantage to using 400 or 400? He had some tapes that were I think were 400 hertz. 440 hertz is a musical note, of course. That's the A, and it's quite commonly used in audio because it is an A, which is, of course is do re mi fa sol la ti do. So it's an A. It's a do, and that's all well and good, but this discussion seemed to get quite involved with people coming up with different ideas as to why things were different values, and I can't find. Anyway, the comment that came in today was the chat was saying, well, it's all down to the resolution. You're better off using 3000 or 3000. Of course, we use 3.3 for Wow and Flutter, and that's a speed thing. Yeah, he was saying, it's down. You've got to use a certain frequency, otherwise the resolution of your frequency counter isn't good enough. It's easier you get a bigger variation at 5 kilohertz than you would at 2 kilohertz or 1 kilohertz or whatever, or 400 hertz. And I was thinking about this. It's been bothering me all day. That's why I thought I'd ask. I wouldn't say it makes a lot of difference, but you could more likely get a better result from a DMM rather than a scope. Digital multimeter, yeah. Lower frequencies. I think I'm with, well, I'll tell you where my position is. I've just had a wiggle. No, my position on this one is it doesn't matter. But see, I've got a 10 kilohertz tape, which is a Dolby tone. I've also got I don't know. I've got another one somewhere else, but I would prefer to use when I'm setting up something, like when I was doing the test on my Dolby 1200. I used a 1K tone. I wanted to check the two decks were running at the same speed, so I recorded on, because they both record. People who don't know, the teac 1200 records on both decks, and independently or together, depends how you set it up. Anyway, so I recorded on one and I played back on the other because I wanted to see, obviously I wanted to see if they matched. And it was within 0.5%. And the reason that was within 0.5% was because I recorded a 1000 hertz tone, or 1 kilohertz if you like, and when I played it back it was less. But even then decks came out with factories that were not bang on exactly. One of the most common problems that I had when I was doing the thing was people were moaning about the speeds not being right. They might have all come out at the same speed from that particular factory, but they weren't the right speed. So, I mean, my way of looking at it is this: if you look at a DVD, now why am I talking DVDs? Only she knows. Why am I talking DVDs? I'll tell you. If you go back to when DVDs first came out, you had region on them, and if you had a region 2 PAL disc, and I specify PAL, it would have a certain running time for a film. And if you had a region 1 disc, NTSC, it would have the same film on it, but it'd have a different running time. It would actually be slightly longer. And the reason for that was simple. They ran the American film with a 3/2 pull down, which meant that they ran it at effectively 60 hertz, but they made it up to 60 hertz. From 24 hertz, they added extra frames and things, but so they ran it at 24 frames per second, but modified it so that the TV gave you a picture, and it gave you a slightly jerky picture. But it meant that it maintained its original running time from the 24 frame signal standard. But what they did in the UK, it was simple enough to do, was they just ran it at 25 frames, because 24 frames, 25 frames makes no real difference, does it? Except, of course, that it does. It's about 20, is it 20%? Well, I'll work it out. It's 1 frame faster. So it gave you overall a very slightly reduced running time on the films. And of course it gave you a pitch shift. Now I have worked that out in the past, but I'm not going to do it now. But if anybody wants to do it, then they can do so and put it in the comments. But it means that you've got any American, well, I say American, any film, be it UK or American or whatever, that was shot on film, 24 frames, when played on the UK PAL system or CCAM, would actually be playing slightly faster. And they wouldn't bother doing pitch correction. All they did was they just played it back just faster. And if you get an American or possibly easier a Japanese, because they do region 2 NTSC, if you get an NTSC copy of a DVD and a PAL copy of a DVD and run them side by side, you'll actually hear the difference. Well, that's what they used to do. They might well do pitch correction now, but it wasn't worth doing all the processing to get a 24 frame film to run on 25 frame TV. Just speed it up. It's only 1 frame. And it's 1 frame out of 50. Well, it's 2 frames out of 50. So yeah, you can work out the percentage on that. I've got that headache still. Anyway, if you run a 1 kilohertz tone and it plays back at 1010 hertz, that's a very small error, because what is 10% of 1,000? It's 100. So 1% of 1,000 is 10. So if it's playing back at 1,005, you've got 0.5% difference. And it's so easy on 1,000 hertz. But if you do it on 3,000 hertz, you just got to, you're talking about you can have 3,030. And if you're doing it at 400 hertz, what's 10% of 400 hertz? 4. Well, if you can't find a counter that can resolve the difference between 400 hertz and 404 hertz, then you've got a problem. Now, admittedly, if you're at, sorry, not 4,000, 404, because if you can't resolve the difference there, then you've got a problem. But 400 hertz, if you go 1%, you're talking about 4 hertz. No, you're talking about 1 hertz. So yeah, technically you can't get it closer than 1%. But is 1% worth worrying about? I would say no. But yeah, if you've got yourself a calibrated tape and you're running at exactly 400 hertz, it's going to be pretty damn close. And I don't think anybody should have to worry about it. If you can hear the difference in pitch between that and that, then why on earth are you ever watching American TV programs on PAL or CCAM TVs? Makes no sense to me. Anyway, that's that one. I was looking through, the TechMoan did a really good one this week on the Poyo. Poyo? I think it's called a Poyo. It's one of these things, let me bring it up on here. Got hiccups now. Let me see. Yeah, TechMoan. Oh, it moved. I know that Kelvin has already seen it. He's probably seen it loads of times, because you can. But let's do that there. And no, that wasn't it. That's it. Fade. TechMoan, yes, he did. Let me see. It was called the Yoto. Yeah, not Poyo. Yoto. And talking about playing, and I thought this was really, really, for the same reason that he thought it was a good idea. They got the Red and the Blue albums and a Queen album on this Yoto system, and it's quite good fun. So, yeah, give it a go. Just looking on this, various things come up. Boom. Let's get rid of that. Bring me back. Yeah, no, actually, while I'm there, I could bring up. V Westlife has done one, which I haven't seen, but it's of a similar title to one that I did, which was the MPX filter. So he's got one on there talking about the MPX filter, which I've got one on my channel about the MPX filter, and I think we basically agree. So that's a good one. Let me bring back me. Yay! Click. There we go. Right. Yes, I am back. Shut your mouth, Gary. Go on. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Anyway, Kelly says, if you can't tell the difference in speed with your ears, why worry? I only break out the test tapes after a repair, or if something looks like somebody's already been playing with it. I agree with you there. Oh, Milda, hello. How are you doing? Yeah, I wanted to make sure, obviously, that my 2 decks were running at the same speed because of, do you know what? When I got that deck, which was nearly 3 years ago now, I had heard all the naysayers on Facebook. I used to be on the cassette comeback. Not, I got banned, but I the one that cassette comeback actually ran is his tape channel thing on Facebook. I used to be on there, and I heard all the naysayers saying about all the this really awful deck and all the rest of it, and that's why when I bought it from Amazon, because if it was no good, I was going to send it back. But having played with the Ion, which is not related to the teac at all, really, other than the fact that you might find a similarity on some of the components, like transistors. No. Having used the Ion, I wasn't overly impressed with that, and I thought, well, I'm pretty sure my Ion runs slightly fast. It doesn't matter, of course, if you record the tapes on the same machine that you play them back, but it does matter if you're going to have interchangeability. So I checked with that, and then I thought, well, so I did a couple of speed testings. But people, if you go on the Facebook groups, you got your favourite thing is the azimuth, and then the next one is speed. How can I check the speed? And then you get all there. Do you know there is? Yeah, that's true. I love that on there as well. Kelvin says he loves the Facebook answers on bias. But have you seen on there the Facebook answer on how to set your speed up? There's a guy there. He reckons that if you get a tape and you record, you measure he says you measure the length of the tape to be a specific length, which is obviously a multiple of 1/7/8 inches per second, and then he reckons that you can. I think the latest iteration was you could use a magnet, but he reckons that you can measure this tape and then you can play it, having put it in a shell. You can then play it and you can time it with a stopwatch. And if it's not the right length, well, if it's not the right time, you know you've got to speed it up or slow it down. Yeah, I mean, I've done one which actually. My speed test ones I've done, a couple of them, I literally decided I'd try and do what they said on Facebook. And one of them is playing music along with it. That doesn't work very well. It works, actually, to be honest. It's very, if you can be bothered, it's quite accurate. Because if it doesn't play, the idea is you play a streamer. So you play something on Spotify, or presumably if you've got a CD, of the same track that you've got on tape. You can then run them two side by side and you can pull it in. That does work. It's really, really difficult. It's hard. It's hard on the ears. It gives you some really weird effects. The things I found with it, it is actually quite a good way of seeing if there's an error, but it's not a good way of curing the error. If you've played literally the same track as what has been played on the tape, if it's off, it will sound, even if it's only a little bit off, it will sound discordant, which of course is all down to, but you've got to line the flipping tracks up and things. It's not fun. The other one I did was using a BPM counter. Now that does work, and that works very well. So if anybody's watching this and they're thinking, what's he on about? If you go for, there are various things that you can measure the tempo of music. So if you get something like the Hot Chocolate album I got, which is actually on Amazon as well, you can play that track, I believe in miracles, etc. And it's got a good, healthy bass track on it, and you can play that. So what I do, what I did on that was I played the original on Spotify or Amazon Music. I think it was Amazon Music I used, and got a reading of it for a specific part of it. So, and that gave me the BPM, beats per minute, which I think was about 150, 140, something like that. And then I played exactly the same bit back on the tape, and it gave me a reading, and then I altered the speed control until it matched, and then I checked it using my proper tape, and it was within a very good margin. Almost. Hello. Corrisporto 155. Hiya. Yeah. The result was, it was within, I think 1.5% or something like that. It was really, really, I was surprised how accurate it was. But then when you think about it, a crystal locked playback of a tune with a good beat should be fairly accurate. Hence the thumbnail. Anyway, yeah, that worked. Right, anybody got anything they'd like to ask, say, or do whatever? It would be, now's the time. Now's the time to say goodbye. Goodbye. No. Pete and Dud. Loved Pete and Dud. It was one of those things where I really found that he was good. It was one of those things that was really good, the old Pete and Dud show. Didn't like Derek and Clive, though. Didn't think that was particularly good. But, yeah, Pete and Dud, great. Right, now I've confused myself again. I've lost something. What have I done? I've gone on to the wrong bit on there. Excuse me, I've just had a slight skid on my car crash. That should be what is running, and it should be currently there, which it is. Oh, good. I'm assuming I didn't disappear anywhere. I've got to stop clicking on things. it makes it. So, what? I've only got one like. Come on. There's at least 3 of you on there now, so you can. Oh, 5 it says, including me. So we can have a couple more likes. The yeah. Oh, look, there's the thumbnail. It really does look like somebody. Really quite impressed with that. Got a rock and roll haircut. Right. So Kelvin says you could just get an old Bassif tape. Length in meters was always on the J card, and time that takes 30 to 45 minutes, but not likely to be accurate. I could have some fun with this concept. Yeah, it's the concept. It's just so weird. I don't understand. I mean, am I right in thinking that some of these people on these Facebook groups are, what's the word? Okay. Quick shout out for anybody who can give the word for the sort of people that are on Facebook that keep on putting this stuff up. I'm pretty sure there's a word. I just can't think of it. Is it something like no? There's a planet that's pretty near it, I think. Is it Pluto? No, that's a dog. There's another one. Attention craving. Yeah, that's part of it. But that's not the one I'm thinking. I'm thinking of, and it's not even nerdy because I'm a nerd. So I'm not going to have a go at nerds because that's not a problem. But it's attention craving is sort of along the lines. Why do they make everything so complicated? Why does everything have to be so complicated? Why can't anybody? If anybody puts anything on, they've always got to have something different. I just don't understand it. But anyway, Backstreet Boys. I'm not sure what that means. Bear with. No, look, you've set me off now. Now, what's going through my head is not suitable for broadcast on a public media, and I'm trying to work out all the permutations to how that bit works. But okay, we'll go with Backstreet Boys. Yeah, I think you were right. Probably the first one, attention craving. There is a certain mentality that love to try and make things more complicated than they need to be. Hence the name of my channel, because I don't want to do that. Now, what was the last one I put up? Oh yes, the one about the bias. I can't say what they do with their Backstreet. No, it's something to do with don't get me started. Passages. I've got to disappear for a sec. Bear with. I am here. I've got to realised that my car crash was too premature. So I've got to get some merch. Can't get the lid back on. Worry about the lid later. Okay. Hopefully you could hear something. Not a lot. Right, I will flash the merch. I'm sure somebody will know what that is. It's not mine, but I don't mind pushing the other chaps. I consider them colleagues. That's what Recordology was saying the other day. He considers people colleagues on YouTube, and so do I, by and large. The ones I like, anyway. The ones who are good, and there's I'm surprised actually there are hundreds of good people on YouTube, and the algorithm keeps on serving me up with some people that are less well, they're just as good, but they're less popular than some of the big names. Right, it's the same all over, and I'm also guilty of it. Something about the subject and your mind fills in the blanks. I'm sure they mean to be helpful. Yeah, that's what you're right. I mean, but has anybody actually seen my latest video? I do so many, but my latest video, the one about the negative bias, and it's really just me being pedantic. Sorry, I had to have a drink. That's what I had to go off for. But am I really being pedantic? Because I don't consider that I am. Because when I got back into cassettes and things, as I said, I was on the vintage tape Facebook thing, and then people were talking about stuff that made no sense at all, and I'm thinking, I worked in this business for 35, 40 years, and I haven't heard half of this stuff. I haven't heard of it, because the people I dealt with, of course, they were customers, and they rang up and said, can you fix something for me? And I said, yeah. And I went round and I either did it in the house or I took it away and fixed it and then took it back to them. They didn't have all this mythology and BS. That's a good word. Let's not cut out the BS. Well, actually, we should cut out the BS because that's what a lot of it is. Now, I just watched it, but I knew what it was before watching. Does that mean there's a spoiler? Should I change something? Because or is it just because I'm that transparent? Because Stephen says I just watched it, but I knew what it was about before watching. Am I that transparent? Possibly. I can make myself that transparent. No, I won't do that. Well, yeah, I could. No, I can't do that. That would just be silly. The reason I did that one was because, well, exactly what I said in the video. I saw that thing and I thought was I being provocative? No, I was just being. It's irritated me since day one that people call it negative bias. So, I could actually show you. I won't, but I could actually show you. I've had the makings of that video for how long's my channel been going? To coming up 3 years. So, yeah. No, I know there's no negative bias tape recording. Exactly. It's all by one of the things that. I'll tell you what was of interest, if anybody's sort of following this, on the Facebook group that the guy put on about the tapes, and it was about pure chrome tapes, and that he had to give it a handful of negative bias. No, a lot of. That's right, a lot of negative bias, full negative bias, and a handful of level or something. I don't know. Anyway, it was quite a lot, and he's talking about it all in sort of. He's just phrasing it aggressively, and he's had to do this. So macho. But I think, and so anybody watching that doesn't really know what he's on about. And then I went on to the video that was suggested to do the cassette comeback one. Now, I'm not casting aspersions here. I'll let you make up your own mind. But the video that he was referring to, where there were some Philips UC tapes, full chromes. And what Tony Villa did was he ran them. They didn't come out very well, and not that you could really tell particularly, because it depends on what you were listening to it on, but it did sound a bit hollow. And what he then did was he switched from type 2 to type 1 and then turned the bias up. I prefer reduced or increased bias for terminology. Exactly. Or you can have, yes, more or less. Exactly. Because that's what the knob's actually marked for. It's marked positive. No, it's marked plus, not positive. Because positive is plus VE. It's marked plus, so it's more. It's like a volume control. It is literally a volume control. But what Tony Villa did in his thing was he had these Philips tapes, and they didn't calibrate very well. So he then put it down into type 1, and he whacked up the bias to be as near enough as high as it would go. So assuming that type 1, his machine was set correctly, his type 1 bias was set for 100%, which is the reference that you use. And then for Chrome, you use 150%. So negative bias, using that terminology, means you've got to turn it down from 150% to something less than 150%, because you've got to go in a downward direction. So you've got to reduce the bias. And so what he did was he recorded it on type 1 setting, i.e. 100%, and then turned it up. So judging by that hour that I had, it said plus 20, assuming that's percent, then he was running at about 120%. And so that would give it, on 99% of decks with a bias adjustment on the front, it's only a pot with a very little adjustment away from the internal. It's only, as you say, a volume control away from the reference set inside. That was a bit convoluted. Yeah. What you did or what I was saying? Yeah. So that's it exactly. It's only a trim, and then so what he was saying that there was nothing wrong with those tapes if you biased them correctly. So what he actually did was he set it to type 1 and then put it onto plus bias. So if assuming it was a percentage, so he went to 120%, which would be 30% down on what it should have been. From what I just said, you said it in one word. All right, okay, good. That's the thing. Keep it simple. So 120%, he's got a lot of negative bias. But what he was trying to say was that there was nothing wrong with the tapes if you had to do that. But also on his thing, he did the type 1 EQ and stuff. And then he said, but play it back as a type 2. No, you've just recorded it as a type 1. Play it back as a type 1, because the playback is only EQ. So you might as well, if you recorded it with 120, you might as well play it back with 120. Or whatever it's meant to be. Yeah, it is 120. I get confused. I always look it up. Hence, yeah, 120. So that's there's your type 1. It says 120 on there. So we all know that, but just for those who don't. So if you record it as a type 1 and whack up the bias on your outside control, then you should play it back as a type 1. But, it wasn't what he did. However, the point remains that I would say, particularly judging by the tapes which I've done tests on, the pure chromes, which are BASF pure chromes, and I've done several of them. The standard setting that I had on my W1200, they performed beautifully. They were absolutely wonderful. The results were, well, I've spouted enough, but they were well good. That's not good English, is it? But it tells you what it is. I would have no problems in using them at all. I don't, but they were recorded as Type 2s. Now, if you've got a machine like the 1200 and you can't alter the bias, then obviously Type 2 is what you've got to go for. But if what he was saying was true on those Philips tapes, you couldn't get decent sound out of them. I mean, his feed wasn't good enough to be able to hear it properly. But he was saying you couldn't get decent sound out of them at the Type 2 bias. Then if you set it to Type 1 bias, it's going to be well under biased and it's not going to be right. So I would, what he was saying was, don't think that these tapes are defective just because you've got to work hard to bias them. Well, if you've got to go from Type 2 to Type 1 settings to get it within range of your very small volume control on the front, then I would say those tapes are out of spec. In which case they shouldn't be being sold for 50 quid a piece or whatever they are. They should be being sold for, sort of $1.99. Sorry, mate, they don't work quite as they should do stock. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. I did take issue with the Type 2 THATs, because anybody seen the Type 2 THATs video I did? Well, a couple of them. Very impressed with the performance of the Type 2 THATs, except for the fact it was only as good as a Type 2 would normally be. The fact that it was metal meant that it had slightly better peaking than a standard chrome, a full chrome, but I wouldn't say it was any better than a Cobalt. The harmonic distortion, what you're going to get is you're going to get a slightly different sound out of it. Right, found an old low deck at a thrift store yesterday with separate buttons for EQ and how do you get rid of this the stupid little heart thing? Hang on, what happens if I move that? No, it doesn't help. Separate buttons for EQ. Let's go on to the live feed. See on there. Found an old low deck at the thrift store yesterday with separate buttons for EQ and bias. Was thinking that was a nice feature. Yes, that was quite common. That was quite common when they first brought out Chrome, because you couldn't auto-select. And if you get an early Chrome tape, it hasn't got the slots. It says on it Chrome, but it hasn't got the slots to auto-correct. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm on about, and I know Stephen does, and I know that Kelvin does, and probably Milda as well. But if you can see it on there, you can see there's the record protect, and then next to it is on this one it's not been punched, but there is another hole there, there, and that, if it's punched out, tells the deck it's a Type 2 tape, which is why this isn't punched out, because that's a Type 1. And if you had an early tape, they didn't have those, so you had to have the switches. But when they brought out Type 3 tapes, this is where any deck with those two buttons could actually run a Type 3. In fact, my teac I've got, which is a 77 something or other, it's got the two buttons, and it looks a bit confusing at first, but it's got the positions for the different types of tapes, including Type 3. Because Type 3, of course, you bias as a Type 1, but you record it with the 70 microsecond time constant, so you get the improvement that EQ gives you, which is only minimal. But you record it correctly with the correct bias, because it's intended to be biased as a Type 1. So yeah, that's good. And if you buy one of those, it's actually very useful, because it means you never get a problem with having the wrong sort of taping. And you can definitely. I'll deal with that later. I've got a question on my Behringer thing. So if you do that with the Type 3, you get the proper results. Kelvin, I was only in a few ferrochrome tapes, and they are all excellent. Yeah, if you record a ferrochrome without doing the EQ, it's better than a standard. And if you do the EQ, it's even better. Shame they lost out type 4. Yeah, but the thing is, they are better than the type 2, and they're better than the type 1. But the type 4, it's a whole different thing, isn't it? And that's why when I was playing with the That's type 2 metal, I was pleased that it was a good type 2, except for it's got quite a, when we're looking at the it'll take the level, but the harmonic distortion really comes in, and you can hear it on the playback that I did. If you use headphones and you hear the 0 dB 1 kilohertz, you can hear the harmonic distortion coming in. It's not clipping, but it's got sort of the shrillness that comes in. Now, if you're playing the right sort of music, that might actually improve the sound, but it's not a true reproduction of what is recorded. But it does take the level better than a standard Type 2 because it's hard to drive them. So it's swings and roundabouts. I am disappointed, though, as pointed out, that people are charging £19, £20 for a Type 2 tape, which is only as good as a Type 2 tape. And the same guy that was selling the Type 2 that I used on the thumbnail, which I did anomalise, but if you go onto eBay, you'll find him. He's also selling Type 4s, genuine Type 4s, for less money than the Type 2 metal. Obviously, from his point of view, he's selling it for the money he can get for them. But the people who are buying it, they're not really getting what they think they're getting. The Type 2 metal is not a Type 2 version of a Type 4. It is a Type 2. I shall change the subject now. Collectability value. Yeah, that's the point. They have that because of the fact that they're relatively rare, I suppose. I put the video onto, now this is Facebook again. Tape collectors, I think it was, blank tape collectors. I put a link to the video, obviously, because I wanted people to watch it. And a guy came back, we were talking about earlier on, and he said, "It's not metal, it's metal particle." I thought, funny. So I thought, have I made a boo-boo? Because I've said, metal, it is metal. And I thought, have I made a boo-boo? And I thought, no, I can't have done. Well, I could have done. I've made boo-boos in the past, and I either correct them or take them down. But, I couldn't work out on this one whether I made a boo-boo or not. And I tell you what, he was wrong. Because it is a type. It is a metal tape. It says so on the back of it. On the back of, let me see, where is it? On the back of those particular tapes, it says quite clearly that it's a metal tape. And it says it's, it does say metal particle, but then it says metal. And then I thought, right, okay, and I went and had a look at Wikipedia. And you know what? Wikipedia says metal particle tapes, known as metal, and it went and gave a description of what there was. So it actually was a metal tape. It is true to call it a metal tape. It just is not a Type 4. So I put that on, and they then sort of realised that I wasn't being wrong. In case anybody is wondering, I do actually look at these things up normally, but that doesn't mean you can't catch me out, because if I choose the wrong source of the reference, then you'll catch me out. It's like the thing about, I put the age of the tape on there as being 1987-ish, and the reason for that was because I couldn't find a listing for the tape that I had which had a date on it, but I could find a listing for one that looked a bit older, which was the same model number, MHCD, metal particle, blah blah blah. So it was obviously the previous model year or model run, whatever you want to call it. And so I that one, and that did have a date on it, and I then checked 3 other listings for the same tape, and they all came up with the same date, and they weren't all the same person. Now they might have all referenced to the same guy, but it wasn't the same guy listing. And so I went with the 1987-ish, knowing that the actuality would possibly be about right, and it's it is. And I'm guessing that a metal particle tape from 1987 is the same as a metal particle tape from 1990 to 1992. The previous version had a nicer triangle window. Aha. Yeah. And also Kelvin gave me some interesting stuff about who was selling them, and that they were not an expensive tape. And that sort of thing, when they were being sold by Smiths, I believe he said. So, yeah, quite interesting, but it's one of those things where, again, people will be swayed by the fact that they don't actually know what they're doing. That's why I don't like things like that being wrong. Yes, it's a metal tape. It's a Type 2. Don't get confused. Simple as that. But I've got a couple more to do. I will be getting on with those shortly. I've found that the tape reviews go quite well, but not earth-shatteringly well. If anybody, I've asked this many times before, if anybody's got any opinions, concepts, ideas, please either send me a message direct or put it in the comments, and I'll see if it's practical to try and do it. Stephen had an idea and I did it, and so I will do it. Or if it's just a case of investigating it, I'll investigate it, and I'll give you a proper answer. So that's anybody. This is potentially worldwide. This live. So anybody, any accent, any language, any dialect. If you've got a question and you want it answered, either put it in the comments or send me a message direct. I will get back to you, provided it's not just sending me to a porn site. And I don't mean that the same as the thrift store. I mean the ones with all the flesh. Don't like those. Not having them on my channel. But anything else, if you've got questions and things, or if there's a way, something you'd like to have a cross-reference on, more than happy to do it. Also, if anybody wants voice stuff done, I can do that. How now, brown cow? I can do RP. So anyway, anything like that. I haven't got involved in all the Black Friday marketing stuff on Amazon and things because, to be honest, I don't particularly like them, and I don't particularly want to drag my channel down into that quagmire. That's not to say I won't do in the future paid for things, and if I find something, if I put my name to it, just so I can say, if I put my name to it, then I believe it, and if I believe it, then I'll tell you about it. If I don't believe it, I will tell you about it also. And I will tell you that it's not a good idea to do it. So if you can take it as that, even if it is a paid promotion, if I don't think it's any good, I will tell you. And if it's a paid promotion and I say it's good, you can guarantee that it's not bad. In my opinion, it's all a case of trust. Right, Kelvin's gone to bed, so good night, Kelvin, and maybe see you next week. If you've got anything, like I say, if you've got anything you want answering, or if you can contribute, then please do. I appreciate you coming, and I thank you for all your help and support. Right, anybody else got anything they'd like to ask or say? Is Milda still here? Let me see who else was here. So we've still got Stephen, I'm guessing. And right, so no Andrew. Well, I mean, obviously there's a problem with the time and location of the live. I tried varying the times, but that didn't work. So anyway, I will stick with what we got. Anything else at all? Anybody? It's now. It's an hour and a half. Wow, 80 minutes. Near enough. Right. So I will. In that case, I'll wrap it up there and say that there are some interesting things to come. I'm going to try out some more experiments. If you send me messages direct, then I can deal with them on direct. But if you put them in the comments, it makes the channel look better. So if it's something that you don't want everybody to know about, then send it by email. If it's something you don't mind, then send it on the comments, because it's a little known fact that every comment makes YouTube think that my channel is better. And I'd like YouTube to think my channel's better, because that means that they then put it out to more people, thinking that maybe more people will like it. And it would be nice to get more people to like it. I'm up to 5.8k subscribers now, and it would be nice if we could get that to go higher. I'm not begging for subscriptions, but if you haven't got anything better to do than subscribe to me, then subscribe to me. That's all I can say. Anyway, thank you very much. I shall wind it up there then, and I will type in here before I've gone. Thank you for joining the car crash. One day I'll get it sorted so that it's not such a car crash at the beginning. But because they keep on updating software, every time I think I've got it sussed, it's different. What can you do? And hopefully I'll see you all next week. Right, so see you all next week there should be a T on the end of there. See you all next week. All spells correctly. I shall hit the go. And anyway, as I say, thank you very much for coming in. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate all the help and support that everybody gives on the channel. And please like and share and put it around. Stephen, I have something. The difference between a conical and elliptical stylus in practice depends on your system. The elliptical and the conical. The elliptical is ever so slightly, it's an ellipse, which means that it will run. You got your groove, so your elliptical stylus, which is basically not round, will sit in the groove and will run in and out. The conical, which is easier to make because you just basically, it's like sharpening a pencil, will sit in there and it's got a fine point. But the thing is, the conical doesn't necessarily reach all the bottom of the groove, so there is some detail down there that is not necessarily picked up. In practice, I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference. It costs a lot more money to buy the ellipticals, and I think unless you're spending the sort of money, unless you've got a system from PS Audio, I don't think that in this day and age it's going to make an awful lot of difference. I don't know that you're going to be able to hear any difference. I tell you what is obvious though, if you spend a lot of money on something, it always sounds better, whether it does or not. I'm not being flippant. I know you asked a serious question, and I'm trying to give you a serious answer. If you put super unleaded in your car, you think it goes better, even if you've got a car that can't use super unleaded to its best advantage. If you spend money on anything, it will always sound better, at least for the first few days. I'm a great believer in, if you're going to try something, you've got to really, really, really run with it, and you've got to go. I always used to, if I bought anything, I'd listen to it for hours on end and use headphones and all the rest of it. And I know for a fact, and I know you know for a fact, Stephen, that if you use headphones, it sounds different to if you use speakers. And what you expect to hear and what you do hear, if they match, it's great, and if they don't match, it's not so good. And I'm referring specifically to that rumble problem. When I had the rumble problem on those 78s I was playing, I expected there to be rumble, so therefore when I heard rumble I didn't have a problem with it. And I know that I then, because you pointed it out, I then cured the rumble, and it sounded better. But as I say, it depends on what you're expecting to hear. What I heard was the way 78 sounded to me in the days when 78s weren't that unusual. Back in the late 50s, they were still selling them when I started listening to records. And to the idea of buying hi-fi in the UK, the idea of buying hi-fi was alien unless you were a millionaire. And so, if you try and hear it, you might hear a difference. But there are so many variables: tracking weight, anti-skate, dust, that I don't think in actual practice you're going to get a much better result. But if you buy a better cartridge, you'll probably get a better result, rather than just buying the better stylus for the cartridge you've got. I think that's about the best answer I can give on that. But if you know any different, I'd be interested to hear. And if you can quantify it or specify it or show it, then more than happy to give it. Like I say, I don't think it makes a lot of difference. But then at my age, to be honest, I've said this before, I've got tinnitus, so I can't tell much difference anyway now. It's one of those things, your eyesight fades and your hearing goes. Right, I knew the theory about it. I just wonder if it actually makes a measurable difference. I guess the elliptical is more sensitive to distortion if misaligned somewhat. I've got a couple of records that will not play properly. One was... you know how dust can have a habit of being in the grooves, but you can't really see it on the record? My original copy of Monster Mash I bought way back. I bought one, and it was... I had to do a special order. When I got it home, it didn't play very well. And it sounded sibilant, I think it was probably the word, and distorted. It just didn't sound, it didn't sound nice. It had no niceness to it. It obviously was the track, but it wasn't playing nicely. And so I never played it much as a record. Now, that was on the record. That was a 70 quid in 1978. So that was a £700 record player I was playing that on in today's money. It was a really nice piece of kit, and it really didn't sound very good. And I had the needle cleaners and all the rest of it. When I played the same record on another machine, it was also crap. So it was definitely the record that was wrong. But the reason I mention that is I had a record the other day and I put it on, and it looked clean and it played fine, except that it didn't. It sounded just like my old Monster Mash one. And when I looked at the stylus, no, that's right, I played it twice. The second time, the sound faded out. And when I looked at the stylus, it was like wearing a turban. So it pulled a load of crap out of the grooves of this record. And this was a record I'd got from a thrift store, from a charity shop. So I cleaned the record, cleaned the stylus, started playing it again, and it was so much better. And so the reason I relay that story is that I still reckon that my copy of Monster Mash is bad, and I know that it sounded like as if it had a turban on the stylus. So obviously there's things that are important, and as you point out there, misalignment and whatever, a lot of these things, once you start getting fussy, you have to get very fussy. And so it might do that. But I personally find that if you start, it's the law of diminishing returns. So if you buy a Crosley, I mean, you know that Crosley thing I've got, I'm not going to use it anymore. That's what I was going to say. I'm going to do a video on it. You know, I've got the UFO USB device, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to use my Iowa cheap and cheerful turntable, and I'm going to play a couple of 78s on that. Now, it doesn't do 78s, but it does do RIAA curve and decent output. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record it digitally, and then I'm going to just up the speed instead of having to do all the RIAA correction and stuff. And I'm hoping that the sound will be better. But if nothing else, it'll be quicker because I won't have to do all the RIAA stuff. I'll just take the file straight off, and it will be a proper file. But I don't know. I've got on that Crosley. I've got I bought the BP10 flip over cartridge, which hasn't got the 3mm stylus on it, but the two styluses that are on there play differently. They definitely don't play the same on 78s. They do play the same on 33s, but they don't play the same on 78s. But I mean, it's so shrill and nasty anyway. It's horrible, but not on its own speakers. So obviously styluses do make a difference, but whether you're going to be able to hear the difference when you've got one that's playing nicely, whether you'll be able to hear that it's going to play more nicely, I would say no. Not unless you've got yourself a really high, PS audio system or something where you're paying £10,000 for a monoblock and you need two of them. Then you can probably start to, and then you've got to buy the speakers that go with it, which give you the resolution. I think certainly on the sort of equipment that I know that you've got, it's probably not worth it. But if you can get one cheap, get one. And if you find that it's good, let me know. I can't say anything more than that or less than that. Just trying to be, trying to make it so that anybody who's just listening to this and doesn't know what's what can understand it. Obviously, I know you knew the theory, but this goes out as a podcast as well, because it can do. Right, okay, Stephen, and anybody else there? Anybody else there? Did that answer your question? Or should I disappear now or not? It's entirely up to you. Anything else? Okay. Let's type on there. Okay. If that's all, I shall THA. Why do the T's keep on missing? That's not how you spell it. How you spell that? No, it doesn't spell it like that either. I had a chap complain. Oh, it's that one. I had a chap complain that I spelt Behringer wrong twice on my Behringer video. He was German, I think, but it wasn't on the actual thing of the video itself, in the title of the description. It was where I was labelling it up on the PC. But anyway, that's it then. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I do really appreciate it. Hang on, what have we got here? I do have 2 times the same one with conical size. So in that case, Stephen, you can try, if you can find something, preferably with a tone type, like a trumpet or something, you could actually get some different results. That would be interesting. I mean, we can't, if you've got two different turntables, if you're using the same turntable and you set it up correctly, that would actually be proper measurable results, wouldn't it? And that would be interesting. And if you can do that, then we can produce a video with the results if you can get the recordings. Anyway, I think that'd be good. Now that would be interesting and would be exciting. So maybe you can give us some thought on that, and we'll go from there. The only problem we got with turntables is getting copyright-friendly music to play back. But if you just got like a trumpet blast, something like that Eddie Calvert, where I've got him playing, you could just take a stretch of that and compare the two, couldn't you? But obviously not with 78s. But you probably see what I mean. Anyway, right, I shall say goodbye now then. And like I say, thank you very much for coming. I do appreciate it. Kelvin, Stephen, Milda, and anybody else who's watching, I thank you very much for coming, and I will hopefully see you another time. Just need to find the time. Yeah, I know the problem. Next time, what you got to do is go to bed and think, now, what was it he said? Just got to find the time. Damn, now I can't go to sleep. Anyway, I should say goodbye and thank you all of you, and see you next week, if you can. Cheers, bye, keep safe.